And welcome. I'm Lauren Snowden. I am the online training specialist for the UC Master Gardener program, and I am your host today for this webinar. This webinar does count as 1 hour of CE units for UC Master Gardeners. Be sure to take credit for that by entering it into the volunteer management system. Today with me, I have Sherry Shook. She is going to be in the background. She's going to be helping me answer questions, make sure that you guys get what you need. If you have some tech problems, put those questions in the webinar chat. She can answer those. And if you have questions regarding spotted lanternfly and questions for our speaker, we ask that you put that in the Q&A section. Everyone is automatically muted, so you just get to listen for now. We have a very special guest with us. We have North Coast Area IPM Advisor, Cindy Kron, with us. She is joining us from Sonoma County, correct, Cindy?
Yes.
Cindy's joining us from Sonoma County. She is our expert on spotted lanternfly and is so happy to be here to share with you about her knowledge about this invasive species that could be coming to California and actually has recently been spotted. So, Cindy, take it away.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. So I will be talking today about spotted lanternfly, and then at the end I have some slides on Tree of Heaven, one of its preferred hosts. Okay, there we go. So spotted lanternfly, you can see the adult here in the photo. It's abbreviated in my presentation as SLF. So when I refer to SLF, I'm referring to spotted lanternfly. The science name is Lycoma delicatula, but we'll just be calling it spotted lanternfly for the presentation. It is a plant hopper, so it is not a moth, it's not a butterfly, it's a plant hopper, but it's a very large plant hopper. It is about 1 inch long in length. So it's, it's a good chunky insect. So it's very noticeable, it's colorful, and it's large compared to, your average insects that are out there. This plant hopper was native to Southeastern Asia, which includes parts of China, Taiwan, and Vietnam. It has become invasive in neighboring countries of Japan and South Korea. Egg masses that were thought to have arrived on a stone shipment in 2012, but it was not first discovered until 2014 in Pennsylvania in a wooded area of Tree of Heaven. It has since been documented. It has since been documented. So originally it was 14 states. When I did this presentation, put this presentation together a year and a half ago. But as of December 13th of 2023, so just at the end of last year, when I went online to see if it had moved to any other states, Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, and Tennessee were added to the list to increase this number to 18 states in which it has been found. But in trying to make sure I was giving the most up-to-date information when I was putting this presentation that I'm giving today together, I looked online, and it's actually been found in 20 states now. So as of July 31st, 2024, it's been updated to 20 states. This map is not as pretty as the other maps, but it does show you more information. The difference between sighting reported and an infestation present, and what is the difference between those two things? So a sighting reported on this map means that they found, one or a couple of spotted lanternfly. They are verified as being spotted lanternfly, but they didn't see evidence of reproducing population. That doesn't mean that there isn't one there. It just means they haven't found it, or it could just be a brand new introduction. In orange, you see the infestation present. And what that means is it's a reproducing population that is established in that region. And then you see the sighting reported with quarantine and infestation present with quarantine, and how that's broken down on the map. So as you can see, although these states, we talked about the number of states, it's not necessarily the whole state. In some states, it's just one county that it's been detected in. But the point is that this insect is moving. It is being able to be spread to neighboring states and even states further away. And so right now we're at 20 states in which at least a sighting is reported that's been verified, but in many of these, again, infestations. So if you look at the map of the US, I colored in the states in which spotted lanternfly have been found. Again, this is not the whole state. Oftentimes it's just one or two counties, but this is the region in which we have found spotted lanternfly. Now, moving on to another map, it was published in entomologytoday.org, the potential distribution of spotted lanternfly in the United States. And as you can see, the areas in red are the areas in which there's a high potential for spotted lanternfly to move to. Again, orange being medium, green being low, and then the white areas being unsuitable. Now, this was a model that was run to predict the future of where is this insect likely to thrive and end up. And as you can see on the very left-hand side of California, Central Valley, all the wine grape growing regions of California are red or orange for the most part. So we are looking at us being a very ideal climate and crops that are feeding hosts for this insect. Now, when you put these maps side by side, you can see sort of a pattern where they see in red on the East Coast and it moving to the West. You can see, well, it's been in those states that we see on the right-hand side. So far, it is matching what is predicted, and therefore we are concerned about it getting to California. In July of 2021, the CDFA responded by establishing a quarantine that prohibited the introduction of spotted lanternfly into California. So that not only was not allowing spotted lanternfly to be in California, but also its host plants, a variety of articles coming from the East Coast where it has been found, including conveyances originating from the area where spotted lanternfly infestations exist. So this is trying to make sure that we're not introducing spotted lanternfly into California, and it is a quarantine that is able then to regulate what comes in and out of California that is likely to have spotted lanternfly on it. So you can see a photo here, spotted lanternfly on grapevines, and in the bottom photo you can see what numbers this insect can increase to. There's been reports of up to 400 spotted lanternfly adults on one grapevine in the East Coast. And we're going to talk a little bit later as to why that's a big problem. So the host range of this insect is about 103 plant species, with 56 of those feeding hosts identified so far in North America. So it's a wide host range, which helps contribute to the ease of establishment. If an insect can always find food no matter where it goes, whether it goes into agriculture or whether it goes into urban, and it's always able to find something that is suitable for it to feed on, it's more likely to survive. Its preferred host is tree of heaven. Tree of heaven is an invasive tree that was originally from Asia. So they co-evolved together. So they have a good close relationship, and also grapevines. But since spotted lanternfly has been established on the East Coast now for 10 years, we've also learned that black walnut and maple are also preferred hosts. We did not know this before because this was an insect's behavior in a new environment can take to different plants that it normally doesn't have available to it in its home country. So other hosts include stone fruits, apple, cherry, blueberry, fig, hops, oak, birch, sycamore, ash, beech, hickory, poplar, black cherry, willows, and woody ornamentals. This is some of the hosts that this insect can feed on. And as you can see, well, it's easy for it to move from one environment to the next. This photo is what an aggregation looks like, and they do aggregate in very large numbers. This is in an urban area in someone's yard, and the whole side of the tree is spotted lanternfly adults. So it can be found in agricultural, wooded, and urban areas, and it moves between these different environments to feed. And it has the potential to severely harm our grape industry, orchards, and logging industries in California. And it can aggregate, again, in these large numbers that you see in the photo. Another problem is that it produces a very large amount of honeydew. And so what does honeydew? The insect is feeding on the phloem of the plant, and the phloem is where the sugars are in a plant. So when it's feeding on those sugars, it's ingesting too much sugar for it to actually metabolize. So it has a way of bypassing the system, its alimentary canal, and is able to just spit out a very concentrated sugar water that came directly from the plant. Now, when you put sugar water on any plant, it's a great substrate for sooty mold to grow because it's a sugar source, and sooty mold loves the sugar. So it starts growing, and as you can see on here, all this black and shiny, the shiny is the honeydew, the black is the sooty mold that's growing on the honeydew. So why is this also a problem? Well, if we just look at wine producers, you know, in California, if it were to arrive, wine producers can downgrade or reject grapes with as little as 3% sooty mold infection. So if you're a small grape grower, not a large corporation, and you sell your grapes to a larger corporation to produce wine with, you have a contract with that larger producer. And what it's saying is that if you have as little as 3% of an infection, they can reject your grapes. And it's allowed in the contract, which means that grower now has nowhere to sell their grapes. They have to scramble to try to find another buyer. Which is why we have contracts to be able to ensure that they put all this money into producing grapes, that they'd be able to sell it. So this is something that is important because this insect produces so much honeydew. And here's some photos showing you on the left-hand side what the sooty mold looks like when it's growing on the honeydew. And on the right-hand side, if you look really close at the bottom, you'll see spotted lanternfly adults at the very base of the tree. So in also listening to the people from the East Coast, if they're arriving to a forested area and they don't know where the spotted lanternfly is in that forested area, or they are surveying to see if it's even present, they can follow the smell of fermentation because there is so much honeydew that's produced that sugar starts to ferment and it puts off a smell of fermentation. So that is how much honeydew they produce. It's a lot. So it is a big problem with this insect. So having spotted lanternfly could increase production costs, and what that means is the amount of money that goes towards multiple pesticide applications in a year to reduce the numbers of spotted lanternfly, or even just preventative netting or putting out traps and anything like that. It costs money to do those things. And so that increases the production cost of producing that crop, whatever it might be. It'll lower the crop yields, cold hardiness. So remember when I said that spotted lanternfly feeds on the phloem, and the phloem, it has a lot of sugar water. So you have leaves that go through photosynthesis, and it produces photosynthates, which is a sugar base, and that helps feed the whole grapevine. And so though at a certain period of time after summer, that stored carbohydrate starts moving down into the roots, and it stores into the roots because the grapevine will go dormant. It'll have no leaves to produce more photosynthesis, more sugar in the system. And so that following season, that stored carbohydrate that is in the roots is what the plant pulls from to be able to push the buds and push the shoots and create the leaves that then can start the photosynthesis. Well, if you have an insect that is feeding in such large numbers and ingesting so much of the sugar, that grapevine can only produce so much sugar. And so what happens is that the next year, when the buds are about to push, if it feeds too much, it can reduce or there could be no return or reduce the bloom or the crop the following year. And then it can also eventually cause the vine to die because it doesn't have enough nutrients within the grapevine to be able to successfully push and produce leaves and produce fruit. And so this is the problem. Not very many things can kill a grapevine. Spotted lanternfly can. Okay, and the next point is expected to cause trade disruptions. So what does that mean, really? And so I wanted to really drive this one home with some numbers. So let's talk the numbers. If you're looking at the 2023 California crop report, and every year there's a new crop report, but this is the most recent one. Agricultural exports accounted for $23.6 billion in California revenue annually. So that is just the exports, not the total agriculture, just what is exported. And of that, I listed some of the hosts of spotted lanternfly: table grapes, walnuts, peaches, nectarines, cherries, you can see. And then how much we, as Californians, gain in revenue annually from these crops. Now, what about almonds, pistachios, which are 4.6 billion and 2.2 billion? If walnuts are a host, could almonds and pistachios also be affected by this, which we do produce a lot of? And the thing is that we don't know at this point. And the reason being is that California produces 100% of the almonds and 100% of the commercial pistachios for the United States. So these trees are not in a commercial sense on the East Coast where the spotted lanternfly currently is. So we don't know. This is a big question mark. So it is possible that once it gets here, it could even be a preferred host. We don't know until it arrives. But if you're focusing on what we do know as hosts, those are the ones above. And so let's break down table grapes. Table grapes bring in $658 million a year in exports. Now, we export 33% of our table grapes to Canada, 23% to Mexico, and so on and so on. This is the breakdown of where that goes. And then the equivalent of what that means. 33% of the table grapes of 658 million is $217 million. Now, the issue is that when we get an invasive species that is not present in these countries that we're exporting to, they will stop allowing us to export. They do not want us to accidentally introduce this invasive species into their environment. So there's countries like Canada, Mexico, Australia, and possibly the other destinations that do not have this insect. They do not want this insect, and this would be what would be definitely impacted. Where are we going to sell that percentage of the table grapes? The growers depend upon being able to export. Our production level is so that we can export this amount. And then all of a sudden, overnight, pretty much, you can't export to Canada, table grapes to Canada or Mexico or Australia. And so this is the impact, financial impact that could happen. Now, Taiwan and Vietnam, this insect is native there. It likely would not impact the trade between those countries. Japan and South Korea, it is considered invasive there. So it would likely impact, but it's not necessarily definite. It would depend on the country. But you can still see in the dollar amounts what the impact just on table grapes could be. So let's jump to walnuts, because walnuts, remember, that's $1.286 billion in exports. And then this is the breakdown. And in green, European Union, United Arab Emirates, Turkey, Mexico, Canada. These do not have spotted lanternfly. And look at the dollar amount of what would be impacted. South Korea and Japan have it as invasive, so that's an iffy area. And then the other destinations, as long as those don't include where it is native, would also be impacted. And so I just covered table grapes and walnuts, but you can do this breakdown for all these other crops. So we're talking about a lot of money and a lot of farmers without a place to sell those crops that they work so hard to produce and sell. Okay, so let's jump into now, what is the life cycle of this insect?
Cindy, would you mind taking two questions?
Sure.
What about wine grapes? California wine exports worth 1.36 billion.
So it depends if it's wine grapes being exported as grapes or if it's wine. If it's wine and it's finished wine and it's bottled, then the exports would not be affected.
Perfect, thank you. And then other question, what other pests of tree of heaven will also create honeydew? Are these trees commonly host to aphids, scale, or other small pests? Just wondering if seeing lots of honeydew would be a strong hint to look for SLF, or if other pests would be more likely at this time.
I don't know if the aphid scales, small pests that you're talking about that produce honeydew, if they are pests of tree of heaven. I do know that brown marmorated stink bug, which is also an invasive, is one of their preferred hosts is tree of heaven. But when it comes to the other insects mentioned that produce honeydew, I would lean towards it's not likely, and the reason being is that the tree produces alkaloids that is hard for most insects to process. And so it's a close relationship that allows insects to be able to feed on this tree. I doubt that is there for the aphid scales that are native to the US, but I don't know for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So September to November is when you will find adults laying eggs. And this is according to the East Coast. So this could slightly shift when you get to California. But in general, this insect has one generation a year. So it lays its eggs around September, November, and you can find eggs between October and June. The first instar, which is just a fancy way of saying immature stage. The immature stages don't have wings. They are not sexually reproductive. And they start small, and each time they molt, they go on to the next instar, get a little bit larger each time. So you'll find your first instars between May and June, the second between June, July, the third between June, July also, and then the fourth instar between July and September. When that fourth instar molts, now it will have wings, and now it'll be differentiated as male, female, and able to mate. And you will find adults between July and December. And then the egg laying again starts September to November. So it's one generation in a whole year that you will get of this insect. So what does each of these life stages look like? Photo on the left shows eggs that are covered with a waxy deposit. Each female will lay 1 to 2 egg masses of 30 to 50 eggs, and you can easily see that on the photo on the right. There's successive rows of eggs laid side by side, and then they cover it with a yellowish brown waxy deposit that you see on the left-hand side. So you can find eggs in both ways because that waxy deposit can get worn off over time, and it might expose the eggs that you can see here. The eggs with the holes, that means that the immature stage has emerged already from that egg. So one of the issues with spotted lanternfly is this behavior that they lay their eggs on smooth tree surfaces, no big deal, that makes sense, but also inanimate objects. And this is where it's really a problem because they have been known to lay on telephone poles, stones, pallets, outdoor furniture, railway cars, firewood, vehicles, kiddie pools, light bulbs, patio furniture, just anything outside. And it's weird because insects tend to lay their eggs where there's a food source for the immatures to have when they emerge. But this insect doesn't follow that rule. It lays its eggs just anywhere. And we move a lot of, as humans, we move a lot of those items, right? And so we're moving the eggs with it without even realizing it. So again, laying eggs on non-plant items contributes to spotted lanternfly's wide dispersal ability and likelihood of this unintentional introduction into new areas, i.e. California. So how did we get here today? Why are we having this presentation and why did it come about? And it really was started with an art structure was stopped in Truckee by CDF station in March of this year. And suspected spotted lanternfly egg masses were found. The eggs were sampled and they were viable, meaning that they were not dead, they were alive, they were able to emerge. Entry was denied for the truck, and it was returned to Sparks, Nevada, where about 30 spotted lanternfly egg masses were removed and destroyed. Structure was power washed with soap and water, and it cleared inspection by the Nevada Department of Agriculture in the beginning of April. Now, it was allowed entry into California, and instructions were not to offload until the Ag Commissioner's Office, Sonoma Ag Commissioner's Office, was able to inspect, but it was offloaded anyway. When the Ag Commissioner's Office arrived, inspected the structure, they found 3 more egg masses. Now, this is a concern. Sonoma is one of my counties. This came into my county, and we're surrounded by grapes and tree of heaven. So like, it's definitely like a perfect place for it to get established. So here's some photos on the left-hand side of the egg masses and what they look like. And I want to drive this point home that remember that an egg mass has 30 to 50 eggs each, meaning that this structure had between 990 and 1,650 spotted lanternfly eggs. That is enough to start a population. If this was not flagged, if it had not been found, this would have caused an issue for sure. Now, you know, this could happen again, and it does. And so this is the concern of, hey, things are coming into California and we're trying our best to prevent them, but we are not perfect. So we need help. We need your help. We need help of agriculture, help of the gardeners, home gardeners. We need help of the whole population to be able to keep this insect out of California. So I showed you what the eggs look like. We talked about how it can be moved around a lot. Now we're going to talk about the immature stages. On the left-hand side, you see the 1st through 3rd instars, which are 1st through 3rd immature stages. They go through 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then a 4th, and then they're adults. So the 1st through 3rd are black with white polka dots. They are pretty, in my opinion, and very noticeably different than what we have as insects out in the field. Then the 4th instar is black and red with white polka dots still. Again, it's different than the insects that we have here that are native. It looks different, and it's colorful, which is really pretty. Then they will molt. Then this is what they can look like together. They like to aggregate, so you can find just one, but they tend to be in groups. So as you can see on the plants and the trees that are here, they tend to be all together, and you can see the different 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th immature stages. Now the adults, on the left-hand side, you'll see a few 4th instars, and then the adults have wings. And you can see the adults at rest, and at rest, their 4 wings, which cover their back, have polka dots, and it's a little pink hue underneath. And then the very tips of the wings have these very reticulated rectangles in the forewing. Now, at rest, you're going to see them as they are on the left. But if you disturb spotted lanternfly and it feels threatened, it will flip its forewings forward, and the hind wings will come out and show you the red hind wing. Again, red with polka dots, and there's also a black and white portion. Red is to fend off vertebrate predators. So insects do not see the color red, so it's not for other insects, it's for things like birds, humans, lizards, any frogs, anything that would eat an insect. It's to ward off an insect. Red is a cautionary color that says, I don't taste good, to vertebrate pests. So if you'd like to know more information, I have a newsletter that is downloadable in English and in Spanish that has the photos that I've been covering here and the information. And you can find it at ucanr.edu/SLF for spotted lanternfly. And again, you can see the toolbar on the left. You click on spotted lanternfly and it'll give you access to that newsletter. Again, downloadable. You can print it. You can put it in the area where the master gardeners are in your office, so you can see the photos and it's right in front of you. So very important. Well, what do you do if you find spotted lanternfly? Or what do you do if spotted lanternfly comes across your desk? My clientele are commercial growers. And I have for years been giving presentations about spotted lanternfly identification. What does it look like? Well, what are we dealing with? What are the impacts? But it's just as likely, if not more likely, going to come across your desk first. Master Gardener's desk will likely find the first one because people are moving again with all those items from the East Coast. And although they're supposed to be inspected, not everybody follows the rules. And so it could end up in your backyard as you're gardening because your neighbor just moved from Pennsylvania. You don't know, but it's likely going to come through your desk. And so what do you do when that happens? You want to collect the insect if at all possible. And you can put it in a sealed container. You can put it in the freezer. And then if you're not able to collect the insect, at least take detailed photos if possible that are not blurry. And then, you submit it if it gets submitted to the Master Gardener's desk, then you can reach out to an IPM advisor that's in your office if you have one or an entomologist in your office to look at it to see do I need to be worried about this or not? If you don't have an entomologist in your office, take it immediately next door to the Ag Commissioner's office. What's going to happen is that if someone brings it to me, a Master Gardener brings it to me, I look at it and I will know, yes, this is, or no, it's not. And then if it is, or if it's suspected to be, I take it to the Ag Commissioner's office. They then submit it to CDFA. CDFA documents any fines. And then they have a response, the statewide response to that localized area of trapping and eradication. It's important that the earlier we find an introduction, the less likely it is to establish. But if we find an introduction once it's established, it's very hard to eradicate, if not almost impossible. So early detection will help prevent this becoming established in any of the counties in California. So let's talk about Tree of Heaven. We know it's our preferred host. Here's some photos of what Tree of Heaven can look like. It was introduced into Philadelphia in 1784 and the West Coast in the 1850s. This is a tree that's been around for a very long time. It's native to Taiwan and the Northeast and Central China, and it's invasive in agricultural, forested, and urban areas. It has the preferred host of brown marmoset stinkbug and also spotted lanternfly. Both of them really like to feed on this tree. But there are can be confused as Tree of Heaven, and here are some of them: black walnut, staghorn sumac, butternut ash, and winged and shining sumac. And so these trees are often confused as Tree of Heaven. People think they have Tree of Heaven, but it's actually one of these trees. So how can we tell the difference? Well, Tree of Heaven, when it's young, its bark is smooth and greenish in these younger trees that you can see in the photos here. And then once it gets older, these trees start turning this grayish brown in the older trees that you can see on the right-hand side. And it really does resemble the skin of a cantaloupe. So think of the skin of a cantaloupe, and that's what that tree bark looks like. Now, these trees can grow really fast, 3 to 6 feet a year and up to 50 to 90 feet tall. So this is one of the things that really allows this tree to be invasive, is that it's able to grow really fast and grow its root system really fast. So the leaves you see on the far left, the leaves have a central stem, and the leaflets are attached on each side by a very short petiole. You can see that petiole in the third photo. It's a very short petiole that attaches that leaf to that central stem. So if you were to pull off that whole stem, you're going to pull it off of the tree, you'll get the second photo, and it creates this V or heart-shaped leaf scars by pulling it off. And so these are some of the features that you're going to be looking at to say, is this Tree of Heaven that I'm looking at in front of me? It has smooth leaflet margins. And so if you look at the leaves, they're not jagged, but they do have these glandular teeth. So the third and fourth photo, you can see that at the base of the leaflet are these little teeth. It has 1 or 2 little teeth that stick out, and then the rest of the leaf is smooth. And so if you just flip those glandular teeth over, you can see this little dot, and it's a gland. And so Tree of Heaven has these glands. and these glandular teeth, which really helps you identify. If you were to smush the leaves, it puts off an offensive and very rancid odor, people say, and it's often described as cat urine or bird peanut butter. I have not crushed any because that's enough to make me not want to crush any.
I have not crushed any either because I'm like, I can just look. I don't need to smell it.
Right? So one of the reasons why this tree is so great at being invasive, it's dioecious, so it has male plants and it has female plants. The female trees are capable of producing over 300,000 seeds a year. That is a lot of seeds. And those seeds are in red, yellow, and green colored. There's a variation of color. Samaras, which you can see in the photo on the left, there's two samaras side by side that are these winged papery tissue that helps the wind with wind dispersal. The way they're shaped allows them to disperse in the wind. Now, it's important to point out that another feature that differentiates this tree from other trees that are similar is that it's only one seed per samara. So there's a lookalike that has multiple seeds in the samara. So this is just one seed per samara. Seed bearing age is 2 to 3 years old. So the tree only needs to be about 2 or 3 years old before it starts producing hundreds of thousands of seeds a year. So in addition, what makes it very hard is that these established trees can send up root suckers up to 50 feet from the parent tree. So an injured or a cut tree of heaven will spread prolifically by root sprouts. So this is the reason why you absolutely do not want to cut down the tree thinking you can kill the tree. You're not going to kill the tree. You're going to produce 50 more trees. So this is one of the problems in controlling this tree. Also, these small root fragments can generate new shoots. So if you cut up the roots, then you're generating multiple new trees. Mechanical methods such as mowing or cutting by themselves are not effective. Treatment timing and follow-up treatments for a second year are crucial for success. So you have to commit to multiple years of treatments in order to get rid of a tree of heaven. So tree of heaven releases allelopathic chemicals that's in the soil that can prevent establishment and inhibit growth of native trees nearby. So it outcompetes by being able to emit this into the ground, and then other trees are not able to be successful around them. And they have a high pollen producer and a source of allergy in some people. And this is also very important. Anytime you handle tree of heaven, you should use proper PPE. So gloves, for instance. It can cause skin irritation with direct contact, and in very rare instances, inflammation of the heart muscle from exposure to sap through broken skin. So it's important to be careful when you're handling this tree, and if you're trying to get rid of it. So hand pulling young seedlings is effective. So if a seed fell and it produced a tree and it's really young, you're able to pull it from moist soil and you get the entire root system. This can be successful, but not root suckers cannot be removed this way. So if you have a established tree and it puts up a sucker 50 feet away and you try to just pull that out of the ground, it's not going to be effective. So again, PPE. Personal protective equipment should be used whenever there is direct contact. Gloves, for instance, you're going to want to target the roots with a systemic herbicide. And it's very, very important that you cannot apply it at any time. It has to be applied between mid to late summer, so July to mid-October. And the reason being, early in the season, that flow of that sap is going up into the leaves, right? You apply early in the season, that systemic herbicide is going to go up in the leaves and kill the leaves, but the tree is able to push more leaves. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't kill the tree. It just makes the tree maybe work a little harder to push more leaves. But between mid to late summer, those sugars, remember, are going back down into the roots for the following year. It's a carbohydrate storage. So when you apply an herbicide then that's systemic, it goes down into the roots, and you want to kill the roots. And that's really what we're looking at. So you want to apply during this window because it is when it'll be most effective. cut stump herbicide applications. That's where they cut the tree to a stump and then they apply herbicides, promote root sprouts, and should not be used. If cutting a tree is necessary, an herbicide application should be made at least 30 days prior to allow for the treatment to take effect before cutting. You apply between mid to late summer, allow at least 30 days for it get into the roots to take effect to prevent them from putting runners up. Then you can cut the tree. And then you need to come back the following year and likely reapply. So it is a commitment to be able to get this tree out of the area that you don't want it in. So well-established tree of heaven stands are only eliminated through repeated applications, and the following up monitoring for regrowth and subsequent applications are definitely necessary. If you want to know more about this, you can go to Penn State University, where this information is, on how to deal with tree of heaven. I also have an article that I've written with the photos of identification of tree of heaven, ucanr.edu/TOH for tree of heaven. And you can get more information on my page. With that, my email address is ckron@ucanr.edu. And then the three URLs, again, to get information about tree of heaven, spotted lanternfly. And then my page is NCIPM for North Coast IPM. If you're interested in seeing more articles that I've written about a range of topics, they're on the left-hand side of this page, and you can click on it, and then you can explore what information there is available. And with that, I am done with my presentation. And
Awesome, Cindy. Thank you so much. Take a little breather break. We had a lot of questions coming in, but Sherry and I were answering some of them as they came in. And just so everyone knows, this is recorded. This will be posted on YouTube. All attendees will also be getting an email after, probably on Friday or Monday, depending on how successful we are at getting some stuff together. But you'll get an email out that says where you can find the recording, where you can find these resources that Cindy has up on the page, and also the slide deck for those of you who want to review it. And thank you so much, everyone, for your thoughtful questions. Cindy, we had a lot of themes going on. So one of the themes that we did already answer, but what's the size of an egg mass? So, and that it's hard to tell. We had this conversation before the training, like it's hard to tell the size of things when we're doing all these close-up photos. So the adult spotted lanternfly is about 1 inch long, right? So there, yeah.
Off the top of my head, I want to say it's about 2.5, 3 inches, but I don't know. The masses are typically 1 inch long by 3/4 of an inch wide, so that's even smaller than I thought.
Yeah.
So
And like we had discussed previously, like there are some people that have been on the East Coast that have seen it and put that in the Q&A chat and stuff like that. So it's very interesting to see that we already have people that have been exposed to it. So I know that we don't have it here yet, but do you know how the pest will be treated if it arrives in California?
So if it arrives in California, there are different, it'll be a quarantine pest. CDFA will respond, and they will do immediate surveys, trapping that are, so they'll do a concentrated trapping around where it was found. And then a certain distance further, there'll be less trapping, and then a certain distance further, less trapping. And they then check those traps usually every day for a certain period of time, as long as they don't find any more. And then for, less often for a period of time as they don't find any more. And part of that is to figure out, okay, is this a reproducing population? Is this a one-off? How did it arrive? Where has it been? And it really depends upon, is it an established population or not? And it is a newly established population. Is it just one generation that they find, or does it look like, oh wow, we found a place where there's been multiple generations, meaning it's been here multiple years? If it's just something that's been newly introduced, eradication is possible. If it's something that's been reproducing for multiple years, that is a lot harder to eradicate. Not impossible. We had European grapevine moth that arrived in Napa, which was the first place it arrived in the US, and we were able to successfully eradicate. That is one of the very few eradication success stories.
I think we have at least 6 different questions of this one theme. Are you ready? Is there anything that preys on SLF or is a beneficial insect that takes care of it, like the green lacewing, or are there birds that eat it?
So this is the thing. If spotted lanternfly has not fed on tree of heaven, yes, birds, frogs are predators of spotted lanternfly, and so are some other predatory insects like predatory stink bugs, assassin bugs. But the problem is that the fourth instar and the adult are attracted to tree of heaven, so they will move from the host that they're on to go to tree of heaven. When they start ingesting the compounds that are in tree of heaven, they become very distasteful, where you will see a bird feed on a spotted lanternfly that has fed on tree of heaven and spit it out. We've seen spiders cut it out of their web, kind of thing, even.
But they're not that hungry.
But they'll spit it out. And the problem when this happens to a vertebrate pest, a predator, like a bird, is that now it'll associate that bad taste with all spotted lanternflies, and it will no longer go after them, whether they've fed on tree of heaven or not. So this is one of the issues, is tree of heaven complicates predators wanting to feed on this insect. Very similar to monarch butterflies, right? If you think about them, they're distasteful to birds, and birds stay away from them because of the food source that they feed on and the compounds they ingest in their body. And it helps protect them from predators. There are parasitoids. There is proactive research that has been done at UC Riverside on testing parasitoids from China on spotted lanternfly and also our native species. In order to introduce a parasitoid, there is extensive studies that need to be conducted to show that these parasitoids are only interested in spotted lanternfly and will not attack our native insect population. And this testing takes many years before approval for import can happen. But this is that research has started 4 years ago, I want to say. And so my understanding, it is ongoing to be able to hopefully have an answer if and when it arrives, that we have something that is approved and allowed to be released. The thing is, with native parasitoids, typically parasitism is a very close relationship. You have your insect and you have your parasitoid, and they usually co-evolve to have a relationship. When you bring only the pest insect and not the native parasitoid, our native parasitoids don't recognize it as food, typically. They don't recognize it as a host that they can reproduce in. So you don't normally get your biocontrol effect from our native species on an introduced species.
Thank you. We do have a couple people asking about lures and traps and things like that. And just from my experience with spotted lanternfly, California is not into that yet because it's not here. What we're doing is monitoring and looking for signs of this pest. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there are commercial lures that they use on the East Coast, and there's continued research on improving those lures, but we do not, as UCIPM, this insect is not present, so we are not saying, hey, you should go out and use these lures or use, whatever tactic. Right now, we are trying to remain vigilant and to survey and see if we can find this insect and prevent this insect from arriving whenever possible.
Thank you. I don't know if we know the answer to this, but how successful have East Coast communities been in treating and eliminating tree of heaven?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
And it would the answer for that would vary from county to county of each state. So there isn't an easy, straightforward answer that would be true to all counties.
Are you educating arborists and landscape professionals to be on the lookout for SLF and Tree of Heaven?
I personally am not. Arborists are, it's not my clientele. I work with commercial agriculture. I am here today to talk to you guys because I think it's very important that the education gets out there. But no, it is not in my area to do that education.
Thank you. So one of the things that Master Gardeners can do is when people are thinking about planting Tree of Heaven, say no to planting Tree of Heaven. Encourage people not to plant invasive species. That's one of our goals. Also, Cindy, you had already mentioned this, Master Gardeners be on the forefront of identifying and reporting invasive species when they come in. So if you're working the help desk and someone brings in that pest, as a Master Gardener, you can be like, this does look like that, and elevating that pest to someone who can confirm or deny that it is spotted lanternfly. So we are being trained and we are on the forefront of this. So one of the other questions was, how are we getting this news out to the public? I think it's slowly getting out there. CDFA is talking to professionals. Cindy is talking to growers. We as Master Gardeners are working towards getting together some, well, Sherry and I are currently working on it. Cindy has worked on it too, of getting a toolkit together for our Master Gardeners to take and go out into the public and do training. We are going to be offering a few different slide decks, some social media posts to help you go out and educate the public. And it's not to scare them, it is to educate them. So as Cindy said, it's as simple as it coming in on a truck, and it can come in on inanimate objects. It can come in on people moving from state to state. Like, what did we see it on previously? Firewood.
CDFA has caught it on firewood, metal plates for construction, on military equipment, on
lawn furniture.
I don't think lawn furniture, at least CDFA. So yeah. It has been seen on lawn furniture, but not coming into California. Nursery shipments, it's been caught on. I do want to mention, though, one thing. Tree of Heaven is on the noxious weeds list, and it is not allowed to be sold at nurseries.
Thank you.
It's not something that you can buy at a nursery and plant. But just throwing that out there. And there, it's on the noxious weeds list. It's not something we want here, but it is randomly in a lot of places.
Thank you. You answered the next question. Someone said we got to get the word out to nurseries. Someone else is saying that they've seen it offered for free on online. So yeah, we do not want that. Okay. What about county and city landscapers / Caltrans? Are they being told not to cut it down? Meaning Tree of Heaven.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Is not that's outside of my clientele group.
Yes. So I feel like everyone has been really positive about not liking Tree of Heaven. Someone called it Tree of Hell. So I think that's a positive. We got that through. Other people are very interested in how the spotted lanternfly moves and what size it is. And so I realize we're running out of time, but I would like to do a plug that the UC Master Gardener program teamed up with the California Department of Food and Agriculture and actually created an online learning module that is open to the public and Master Gardeners, so everyone. And it is made to educate people basically on what Cindy just did. It goes into a little more depth. There's some more resources that you can go look at, but you can get, you can see the spotted lanternfly next to a quarter. You can see how it moves. You can actually see it pooping out honeydew, which is, kind of gross, but it's in there and you can see it. And Cindy is right. When they get together, they eat a ton and create lots of honeydew. So someone had asked earlier about the sooty mold. You will know because the pictures that I've seen of the sooty mold under trees that are heavily infested, it's not like I would see in my backyard on a rose bush from an aphid. It's definitely more prevalent and you can, I don't know, it's very active. It's much different than what I would have seen with a aphid or other pests that does that. We are running out of time, but Cindy, I would love for you to give one more plug for your webpage and all of your other resources.
Sure. Again, my webpage is ucanr.edu/NCIPM for North Coast IPM. You can also do /SLF for Spotted Lanternfly page and /TOH for Tree of Heaven.
Thank you. And again, this is recorded. We will be sending out an email afterwards with links, with information. And if you're interested in taking that invasive species or becoming an invasive species scout project volunteer, we'll send that out with it. We'll also send out our module for Spotted Lanternfly if you'd like to learn more. Also, please take credit for this and record 1 hour of continuing education in the volunteer management system. Cindy, thank you so much for educating on this. We love your passion about this pest and hate for Tree of Heaven, and love for knowing that we are going to try our best to keep Spotted Lanternfly out of California. We will close the recording. Thank you so much, everyone. Sherry, thank you for helping out in the background.
Thank you.